I have been obsessed with clothes for as long as I can remember. When I got my first part-time shop job at the age of 16, I remember I spent most of my spare time on the ASOS website trying to figure out how I was going to spend my very tiny paycheck. At the time, Topshop and American Apparel were all the rage. I was obsessed with the American Apparel disco pants and the Jeffrey Campbell Litas. If you know, you know. I always had just way too many clothes. The tiny wardrobes of my London share houses were always filled to the brim with clothes that were too small and too tight and only really worked for going out to a club in the middle of Shoreditch. In 2017, I moved to Sydney, and a few years later, COVID happened. We all retreated inside. I started working from home, and suddenly my wardrobe of work and going out clothes didn't really make any sense. And I think COVID made us sit in our imaginations all a little bit too much, spending our time browsing clothing websites and revenge spending for the days that we would finally be allowed back outside. After a lot of journaling and thinking, I slowly started to realise the error of my ways. I realised that I wasn't really buying for the real version of me, the version of me who worked from home and walked her dog and goes to the pub with her friends. I was actually just buying for the version of myself that existed very occasionally when going out to a fancy restaurant or a bar. So I did a Marie Kondo, I sold half my wardrobe on Depop, and then me, my husband and our dog Winnie moved back from Sydney to the UK, and I had to just get rid of a lot of clothes in that process of moving. And then at the beginning of the year, I found knitting. In all the years I'd been obsessed with clothes, it never really occurred to me to make my own clothes. I did used to love watching Ashley of Best Dress here on YouTube, RIP her account, but I didn't have a sewing machine, I didn't have the room, and I just didn't know where to start, so it just never occurred to me. But when I found knitting, I suddenly realised that you don't need necessarily a sewing machine to make your own clothes. All you need is some knitting needles and a piece of string, and you can pretty much make whatever you want. I started to find knitting pattern designs that were modern and cool and that I would actually want to wear, and that changed everything. Knitting has fundamentally changed the way that I look at my wardrobe. Suddenly I have the power to create anything I want, in any colour I want, in any fabric composition that I want. It has also helped me put a lid on my buying habits, and that is what I wanted to talk to you about in this week's video. I'm going to be sharing the 5 ways that knitting has cured my clothes addiction. And if my story resonates with you and you haven't started knitting, then maybe this video might be that trigger that you need to give it a go. And if you are already a knitter, I'm hoping that some of this will resonate with you and you might relate to some of these revelations I've been having over the last 6 months of my knitting journey. The first reason that knitting has cured my shopping addiction is the I can knit that effect. I first realised this effect in February when I was in Berlin. I went into a Sézane pop-up in Berlin. So this was my first time seeing Sézane clothes in real life. I've been obsessed with the brand for so long. I still think all their clothes are so beautiful, but I was looking around the store. They had so much amazing knitwear, and at this point I was only about 2 months into my knitting journey, but I was looking around and I was just thinking, I could knit this. Maybe not at that time, maybe I needed to learn, lace or cables or whatever the design feature was. Obviously I wasn't just easily going to be able to knit everything in the store, but I had the confidence that with enough time and patience that I would pretty much be able to knit anything that was in that store. And just having that knowledge that I could potentially knit something stopped me from buying it, because I just thought, well, I would rather have a handmade version of that thing and I can choose the exact colour that I want, the exact yarn that I want, and I can knit something that is quite similar. But this is wider than just Sézane. Now whenever I go into any store, I look around and I think I could knit most of the tops, or at least most of the knitwear. Obviously there are some things, for example, very fine gauge knitwear, you're not really going to be able to replicate that with a hand knit, but most things that you see, you can probably recreate some version of that yourself. Even t-shirts, you can knit with cotton, you can knit with linen, vest tops, bralettes, camisoles, cardigans, jumpers, sweaters, vests, pretty much any top that you can think of, and bottoms. Although I feel like that's a slightly different category. You can knit yourself. The second reason that knitting has calmed down my clothes buying addiction is that I am suddenly so much more aware of the human labour that goes into making clothes. Obviously, everyone knows that there are people making clothes. We've all seen the documentaries. We all know the reality. We all know the ethical implications of buying fast fashion. But I think until you've actually sat and made your own clothes, whether it's a hand knit or sewn something, you are not going to really understand the labour that goes into that. Because I wasn't. I knew it in theory, but I didn't really connect to the person that was making those clothes because I didn't really know what it involved or what it was. I am in no way saying that I can relate to the experience of garment workers. I am just sitting at home, I'm knitting, I'm fine, I'm enjoying myself. I guess it's more that by creating clothes, I am just so much more aware of the time and the labour and the effort that goes into it. And that has just brought things into perspective a lot more for me. Just thought I'd make that clear. I ordered some jeans recently and I didn't realise that they had these like distressed slashes in them, and I wouldn't have ordered them if I'd have known that. And I just looked at these slashes on these jeans and I realised that someone's hand had probably just gone and slashed that material. And it just gave me this really horrible feeling because I think in the past I wouldn't have known. I would have thought, oh, probably just a machine just goes and rips those clothes. But after realising how clothes are made, I'm just realising someone's job is there to just slash some jeans open that they've just made just because that is the style of jeans that is quote unquote cool at the moment. And it just really freaked me out. I don't know why, I just had such a strong emotional reaction to seeing these cuts on these jeans, and I don't think I would have had that feeling if I hadn't have made my own clothes. And maybe that's a bit extreme, maybe I'm putting too much emotion into these things, but I just don't think I would have had that feeling or that connection or that realization if I hadn't already been making my own clothes. So needless to say, I returned those jeans. The next reason is that I am obsessed with construction and fit now in a way that I just wasn't before. For example, the jumper I'm wearing today is a saddle shoulder construction. This is the Lakes Pullover by Ozetta, and before I started knitting, I had no idea about any construction. I didn't even know what a raglan was. I didn't know what the word yoke meant. I didn't know set end sleeves. I didn't even know what a drop shoulder is. Now all of these things seem quite obvious, but before I started knitting, it wasn't obvious to me. I didn't understand that. And now when I'm looking to buy clothes, I am thinking, what construction is this? Is that going to look good on me? Is this a circular yoke? Is this a raglan? How is it constructed? Is it set in sleeves? Most of the time with things you buy from a store, they are just seamed, like set in sleeves. But even just knowing that and noticing that and thinking, oh, I now know how that is constructed, has really just changed the way that I shop, and I'm a lot more picky and I'm looking at things in a lot greater detail than I ever did before. I'm also so much more picky with fit, and that has kind of gone into everything that I'm buying, not just jumpers, but trousers, for example. I am 5'10", so I'm quite a lot taller than the average woman, and it has made me realise that a lot of the trousers that I own are too short for me. So I'm currently on a mission to find some long trousers that are high quality and look good. Suzanne has some good ones, but I won't keep going on about Suzanne. And now whenever I'm buying something, especially if I'm buying something online, which to be honest I'm not doing as often, but that's because I am hunting for the fit information. I'm hunting for that length information, the inseam, if I'm buying a pair of trousers, trying to figure out how much longer the arm is than the body, how cropped is it, how wide is it. And you'll be surprised to realise that most of the time that information is simply not available. If I'm buying something, I want to make sure it fits me perfectly and exactly in the way that I want it. And I don't think I was as obsessed with all of that stuff before I started knitting. And that in itself has just slowed my buying habits because I have such an eagle eye for these things now, and I will not buy something unless I know that it is gonna be the right fit for me. Next reason why knitting has cured my shopping addiction is I am now obsessed with composition and fabric composition, and I do think people are becoming more aware of this. I've seen lots of TikTok videos with people going through different shops and pointing out composition and, you know, figuring out what is actually high quality and what is rubbish. But it is so surprising how many high-end, even luxury brands are still selling clothing that is primarily made up of polyester or acrylic. It is actually quite shocking when you see the prices that they are charging for essentially plastic. I have quite a few tops that at the time I was like, I'm going to spend this because I think it's a great design and it's obviously really well made because it's from a great designer. And I have looked at them recently and seen that they are basically just polyester. I'm not saying polyester is evil 100% of the time. Some things like activewear, it makes sense. But overall, if you're spending a lot of money on your clothes because you want to pick something that is sustainable and is going to last you and is going to fit well, then pay more attention to the composition. And that is something that I've been doing. And it, again, has just cut down the number of things that I'm willing to buy because I can just see that they're not made with high quality materials and they're not going to feel good on my body. And it's true, the things that I have bought from nice designers, let me go get you a few things that I'm thinking of. This is a vest top by Christopher Esper, which is an Australian designer. I was obsessed with this design. It is a very cool design. It's got this like twist effect on the front. This top is 93% polyester, 7% spandex. Whenever I wear this top, especially when I would wear it in Australia where it was really hot, I would sweat, I would feel uncomfortable, I would feel not nice because this material is polyester and it's not nice and it doesn't feel good. And I'm going to sell this probably on Vinted because I never wear it. It's actually not in my colour season either. So yeah, I've got more than one of those types of things in my wardrobe. And I really wish I didn't. The final way that knitting has helped cure my shopping addiction is to do with colour. And I'm very much interested in colour analysis. I have been since even before I was knitting, but since I've been knitting and having to choose yarn colours, and because with selecting yarn there's always generally much more options available to choose from than when you're just buying clothes online. Usually when you're buying clothes you might have, you know, 3 or 4 colour options if you're lucky. When you're buying yarn you might have 20 or 30 or sometimes even 50 different colour options. So I think knitting has really helped me focus on being really careful with what colours I choose. And colour analysis is part of that. I am a light spring and I've been really enjoying thinking about that and thinking about what colours look good on me and experimenting, maybe trying things that I haven't necessarily gone to before, like pushing out of my colour comfort zone a little bit more, and also figuring out what neutrals are best for me. I know I'm just wearing a grey jumper right now, but I have been with blues and purples and greens, yellows, trying to kind of go out of my colour comfort zone a little bit more, and I think knitting has really helped me with that. The reason that has cured my shopping addiction is because there are just so many clothes that I just will automatically discount because I know that they are not in my colour season. If something is like a really bright white, I will not buy it. I don't really buy black anymore, which I used to buy a lot of black because that is such a common colour of clothing that you can buy online. Now, if I see something in black, especially if it's in the top half, I just will not buy it because I know that it's not going to look best on me. So obviously knitting doesn't fully cure a shopping addiction. It might cure a clothes shopping addiction, but we can all buy a bit too much yarn. And I'm currently trying to figure out how to pace myself with my yarn shopping because I know that I could very easily transfer my shopping habits from clothes to yarn. And I don't want to do that because it takes a long time to knit something. If I keep buying yarn at the pace that I had been buying it, I'm never gonna finish that yarn and I'm never gonna get to everything. And that is kind of stressful because knitting is a slow hobby. That in itself has kind of helped me try and slow down my yarn buying a little bit. But you know, I still feel like if I'm buying yarn, it is for something that is going to take me time, it's going to be a hobby, something that I'm going to enjoy the creation of, is so much more valuable than just buying something. You have it and you put it in your wardrobe and you don't really think about it. Whereas buying yarn, it's like you're buying an experience as well. You're buying the ability to make something lovely that you want to wear. So even though I am trying to pare down my yarn shopping, I still feel like it is a completely different kettle of fish than just buying clothes just because you're bored or because you want to live out this fantasy version of yourself that doesn't actually exist. So I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a slightly different video format for me. Let me know if you enjoyed. And if you're a knitter, let me know how knitting has helped or hindered your buying habits. I'm very intrigued to know. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!